Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Matt Eberflus being fired after the Bears late game debacle on Thanksgiving. We'll discuss the Eagles going into Baltimore and defeating the Ravens. We'll discuss the Zach Taylor and whether or not he should keep his job after the Bengals dropped to 4-8. We'll discuss the Rockets and whether or not they are a legit NBA contender, and and the Will Hardy situation where he called a timeout against the Lakers right before a go-ahead bucket by Colin Sexton. And stick around for the end of the show where I'll be giving you my reaction to City's loss to Liverpool and whether they have completely fallen out of the title race. Before we start off, if you have a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's always an easy way to do that. Just use the super chat button at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the GSMC podcast.net to tip, donate, or leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We do have to start off though with Matt Eberflus. He has been fired after the Bears' late game debacle to the Detroit Lions. They lost in a hard-fought game. A remarkable second half from Caleb Williams to come back. They were down 16-0 at halftime, getting completely dominated. The Bears offense couldn't do anything, but Caleb Williams came out in the second half dealing. They went on the second half to score 20 points. Played a really efficient second half offensively. Caleb Williams was able to push the ball down the field to DJ Moore on a touchdown. He was completing key plays. But the real big story of this was at the end of the game, the Bears being down 3, they had the ball with an opportunity to drive and even potentially win the game. It's an interesting situation here. So they have the ball. They're down 3, correct? They have one timeout remaining. A little bit less than 50 seconds on the clock. They decide to go quarterback draw. I have no problem with that decision. You still have a timeout there. You try to catch them off guard with that draw. Potentially it can lead, to a big play. We've seen, it happened in the past because it's an unexpected play. Don't have a huge problem with the quarterback draw. The quarterback draw completely fails. Usually when you do run a quarterback draw or some sort of halfback, even sometimes with some sort of halfback draw, you tend to let the defensive ends go unblocked to get their momentum going one way, and then you run straight down the middle against the grain. But sometimes, the defensive ends get enough depth to, be able to make a play, and that's exactly what happened. So it was 46 seconds left. It's a second down, and, the defensive ends were able to contain Caleb when they went free, and they just didn't allow the draw to happen. And honestly, if he was able to get out of there, if the defensive ends took the bait and went straight up the field, there was blocking, and Caleb Williams had an opportunity to get a decent amount of yards. Caleb Williams has some sneaky speed in there, but it didn't end up happening. He ends up getting sacked or tackled, I guess, tackled for a loss, with 32 seconds remaining. The Bears, in that moment, Matt Eberflus and the Bears, they decided not to use a timeout. Okay, because because in their, I'm trying to go inside their mindset. They want to keep all options on the table. They want to be able to use the middle of the field. They don't want to waste a timeout. That has to be, that has to be, before the play, it has to be clear to Caleb Williams. If no matter what the situation is, if the play gets tackled in bounds, no huddle. You need that second play already sent to Caleb Williams, and the whole offense needs to know if it's tackled within the field of play, hustle back. It's no huddle. We need to get the snap off as quickly as possible. It's a lackluster effort from the Bears trying to get back, and then even once the Bears end up getting backed, they finally end up all lining up with about 17 or seconds to go. Caleb Williams is out here trying to readjust the play, doing head munches and all that. And remarkably, even in that situation, if they were just to get the snap off with about 15, 14 seconds left, you still have the ability to hit a completion, go down, and call that time out. But remarkably, it takes them another extra 7 seconds or so to get the snap off, and suddenly you're snapping the ball with 6 seconds left, and and the play took a while to develop, and you can't get it to Odunze, and the game is over. It's just miscommunication. Look, in the moment with Matt Eberflus, I personally don't mind the decision not to take the timeout dead. The mistake by Matt Eberflus and his coaching staff was to not clearly communicate if that draw, if anything happens where you're tackled inbounds, whether it's a sack, whether you get 10 or 15 yards on the play, whatever, you have to quickly get on the ball and either spike it right away. If you end up, in that situation, you can't spike it because it is third down. Actually, you need to have that play called in advance and get on the ball and run the play. If Caleb Williams was to remarkably get that first down, the play in that situation would have been to just spike it, because you would be on a first down and you could just spike the ball. But if he doesn't get the first down, there needs to be that second play that comes in right away so that you can get on the ball and snap it as quickly as possible. You want that ball ideally snapped with 16, 17 seconds left, so where you can hit a play, whether it's on the sideline or in the middle, and you still have that timeout to call. You keep the middle of the field open with that timeout. I think having that timeout is a complete game changer for your next play, because you can, your whole playbook is open. But to do that, you have to hustle quickly on the ball, and you got to get the play off quickly. But Caleb Williams is out here having to, trying to readjust the play. I think he said after this game he's trying to change the play up and all that. You can't. You have to have some sort of structure. The coaching staff didn't provide Caleb Williams with the structure. He's out here trying to do his own thing too, trying to change up the play, and it leads to a disaster, an absolute disaster. Caleb Williams was tackled with 36 seconds left. You have one timeout, and you only get one play off for the rest of the game, and it's a semi-shot to Romeo Odunze he wasn't even in the end zone when the ball was sent, and it was just never gonna happen. It's horrible. I think Caleb Williams is a little bit to blame. Even the fact he's a rookie, obviously Matt Eberflus, and I defend his initial part of not wanting to take that timeout. I understand wanting to leave the middle of the field open, but you have to communicate clearly that a plan that you gotta get on the ball quickly and run that next play, quick, no huddle quickly, so that you could get the snap off with at least 15 or 16 seconds left, so that you could, so then you could run multiple plays. And that's the situation, They end up not taking a timeout. The timeout gets wasted. And if you don't, if you're Matt Eberflus and the coaching staff, and you don't do that, uh, you don't communicate that clearly, you have to call that timeout as soon as the tackle happens. Number one. Number two, I also think this mistake is compounded by another mistake Matt Eberflus made as well. You get to the point where you're around 19, 18 seconds and you see Caleb Williams out here doing signs and all that. Just take your L. You already wasted the seconds. Take the timeout and draw up a play where you can do a quick 10-yard out to get in closer in field goal range. Just take the L, because what you're allowing is you're allowing the clock to tick, and you're just eliminating any chance you have to make that play with him snapping the ball at 6 seconds. Even once it reaches that 12, 11 seconds, you're at the point where you're thinking, where you're Matt Eberflus, you're thinking, this is probably going to be our final play. Let me just quickly take that timeout right there, and let's get a better play in where we could get a 10-yard out or a 15-yard out or something with the sideline so that you could get in closer in field goal range, because they only needed the field goal to tie it. So I thought there was multiple mistakes made there, because even the fact that you let 20 seconds go by is still a huge mistake. But you still have that timeout there that you could call a better play in that position, or that you could get a play that gets you closer in field goal range. So there's just a lot of mistakes that happen. As far as Matt Eberflus being fired, it was about damn time. There's nothing really that he's done to warrant any sort of backing on the Chicago Bears. They've been really bad since he's been there. I think this is a team 4-8 that they're really a much better team than 4-8 defensively. They're a very, very strong units. They have a lot of talent defensively and offensively. This is a team with 3 wide receivers that that are really, really good. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. Even though I question DJ Moore's work, his effort, definitely. But Caleb Williams, Romeo Dunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. These are 3 really, really good wide receivers. You have DeAndre Swift as a running back. The offensive line is decent, I think, as well. There is talent offensively, but they just haven't been able to get it together this season. They fired their offensive coordinator Shane Waldron last week or so, and there needs to be changes in this team. But this is a team with potential, and I think it's a team coaching position that's going to be really, really coveted. And it's about time for Chicago to move on. A lot of late game disasters this season. This season all turned around. The Bears were 4-2. They had an opportunity to beat a really good Commanders team this season and become 5-2. They lose the game on a Hail Mary and they go 4-3, and their season completely evaporates from there. Essentially, they haven't recovered since. In fact, they haven't, they're on a 5-game losing streak since that period. It's just this cold reality of the NFL. Those sort of moments. I firmly believe they knock down that Hail Mary, this is a completely different Bears team. The momentum completely shifts, and I think we're talking about them potentially being in a race to make the playoffs. But moments like that is completely season changing. And DJ Moore, there's been few clips and moments where his efforts really been questioned, but when I really realized okay, this is a problem. DJ Moore is a real problem. So when I'm sitting next to my uncle, Thanksgiving family comes to my house, and this my uncle watches occasional football, but is not the most extreme football fan, well-known football fan, but he watches some football here and there. I see him, and he points out it was one play. It was a 4th down, actually, late in that game on that same drive, where they threw it deep, and it ended up being a pass interference on DJ Moore, and it ended up being a first down on a 4th and long. But the ball gets sent in by Caleb Williams. It's a little short, yes, obviously. But DJ Moore makes no effort to go after the ball, and my uncle is the one that points out, "What is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing?" Someone who doesn't even know the whole DJ Moore history of what we've been talking about this season regarding his effort. That's when I knew DJ Moore is a real problem. The effort has not been good enough, and it's been something that needs to be sorted out, because that's not acceptable at the NFL level. And Matt Eberflus, he is a dead man walking for a very, very long time. How he retained this job was not controversial, but he was on the hot seat, and it's about time he got fired. Short breaker coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the Eagles defeating the Ravens.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed Matt Eberflus being fired. We move on to discuss the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles have improved to 10-2 on the year after their win over the Baltimore Ravens. Impressive win in the fact that they went into Baltimore, a Baltimore team that is really respected, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL in general, with their prospects of, potentially being in the Super Bowl this year with what they also accomplished last season. Is a Ravens team that a lot of people believe in. And what the Philadelphia Eagles did in limiting that, in that high-flying Baltimore Ravens offense, what they did to, limit Derrick Henry to 19 carries for 82 yards, the penetration that defensive line got. I think at certain periods, manhandling this Baltimore Ravens offensive line. I thought that Eagles defensive line was electric. I thought the Eagles played a composed game. I thought there were certain periods in this game that they tended to get a little bit away from Saquon Barkley, and they turned, a little bit more on a drop-back pass team, which is not the strength of Philadelphia. And I think there were certain periods in this game that they struggled offensively. But when they got the ball to Saquon Barkley's hand, when they took advantage of play action, RPOs, all that, they looked dangerous. And, they are coming into this game short-handed with the with Devontae Smith not being able to to really go, but the Philadelphia Eagles were still able to get on the win sheet with the win, and they've been impressive. And if you look at where this team is now compared to where they were after that loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe it was in week 4 of the season, or week 3 of the season, where they, that was when they, when is that? That was probably week 4 of the season, where they are now compared to then, or even, compared to that, that narrow win they had over the Cleveland Browns, in which they looked pretty bad in that game as well. This is a completely different team with what Saquon Barkley is able to do in the run game, how Jalen Hurts looks like a new quarterback, where they're not forcing him to be a drop back 20-30 pass per game quarterback. The balance that they have defensively, the penetration the defensive line is getting, how on both sides, the trenches, they're able to dominate. They're able to move guys in the run game, and they're able to, get penetration and stopping the run, and they're able to rush the passer as well. Not as electric as the Eagles' pass rush was a few years ago when they reached the Super Bowl, but still an opportunistic pass rush. Jalen Carter, what a defensive tackle. Could argue he's the best defensive tackle in football. He's been incredible. He's been incredible, not just in the run game, but his rushing the passer as well. He's incredible. He is a really, really dominant player, and he deserves a lot of respect. Look, with the Baltimore Ravens, their losses, are almost the same. By the way, remarkable stat. The Baltimore Ravens entered this game, or Lamar Jackson entered this game, in his last 24 starts against the NFC, or 25 starts in the NFC. Entering this game, he is 24-1. He now falls to 24-2. He lost his first 2 ever games against the NFC, but since then he's been 24-1, and now he's 24-2 with this loss. So his career in the NFC, I believe he's 24-4, or 23. No, he's 23-4 against the NFC. So he's in his last 25 games, he's 23-2 with this loss. He entered this game 23-1, and then against the NFC. So there's not a huge precedence of this happening for Lamar. But if with the Baltimore Ravens, these losses, it always seems like, you go back to that Chiefs loss as well. When the Ravens lose, it just seems like they lose because they can't get it going offensively. They look lackluster. The other team is able to limit Lamar Jackson's running lanes, or Lamar Jackson is limiting his own self in terms of not taking the lanes when they come, which I saw. I noticed that yet again today. I don't think they abandoned Derrick Henry. I just feel like anytime Derrick Henry got the ball, there was, that Eagles defensive line was there ready to pounce. He could never get to the second level on a consistent basis. And that was so impressive to me with how physical and, this Philadelphia Eagles team is a bully. Defensive line bullying teams, offensive line bullying teams, Jalen Hurts with his physicality bullying teams, A.J. Brown with his physicality. They are a bully football team, and they are very, very physical. And if you compare this unit defensively compared to last season, we're talking night and day. We're talking night and day with this Eagles team. Going back to the Baltimore Ravens, though, it's like these losses keep happening where they can't get anything going offensively. They're really struggling to stop the bleeding in terms of, being able to get points on the board. And then they're getting points late when it doesn't matter. Like they had that likely touchdown at the end. But when it matters, they're struggling to move the ball. And they're not making the right plays at the end to finish off drives. I mean, Justin Tucker missed 3 field goals today. What can I say? And he's been not good this season, to say the least. He's missed a total. I believe he's missed 7 kicks this season. I'd have to check. No, he's missed 8 kicks this season, missed 2 extra points. So a total of 10 kicks this season, 19 of 27. 70% as a field goal kicker is pretty bad. I mean, that is well below the presidency set. I mean, this is a guy in Justin Tucker that's had a season where he's kicked at 97%. He's had another season where he kicked 94%. He's had another season where he kicked 96%. He has a precedence of excellence. He's a career. He entered this career, I believe it was around 90%. Now he's 89. This season it has drastically dropped his level. His 8 kicks that he's missed this season is a remarkable number. I never thought we'd see this. I think every kicker has their case of the yips. I do have to say, I think every kicker does have you look at Chris Boswell. He's been remarkable for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. He's kicking at a 91.9% percentage. He's had seasons where he's really, really struggled. In 2022, he kicked 71.4%. In 2018, he kicked 65%. Sometimes the kickers do go get the yips. And when the confidence goes, it goes with the kickers. And it's a little bit of a struggle to get it back. I think the whole moving on from Justin Tucker thing is just wolf talk, and it's just people being emotional, and it's just ridiculous. I think he will eventually regain his, confidence and mojo and all that. It's just a rough position he finds himself in. And people are talking about his age 35. Well, 35 is not particularly old for a kicker. Let's just be for real. This is not a guy that's fallen out of his prime. This is a guy that's just had a low moment in his career, and it's going to happen. Eventually, you play long enough, even if you're as great as Justin Tucker is, you will go through that period. You just, if you're a Ravens fan, you hope that he figures it out going down the stretch. You don't want this to be the reason why you lose a playoff game, obviously. And it's not the greatest position to be in the world with not having much confidence in your kicker at this moment. But, yeah, I think that's not the problem. That's not a huge problem there. And I just think this Ravens team, I really struggle to believe in terms of reaching that next level and getting to that Super Bowl. Because why should I believe what happened today is not going to happen in the playoffs when they go up against the Chiefs again? How can I believe that? How can I believe what happened today was not going to happen when they go up against the Steelers in the playoffs, Why, what makes me believe that they're going to go and win 3 games in the AFC or even 2 games in the AFC? No, they're not getting a bye, actually. So what makes me believe they're going to win 3 games in the AFC? I just think with this Baltimore Ravens team, we know what they are, we know what they're not. This is not a team as good as last season. They're more flawed of a team as last season. Their record shows, and the fact that 8-5. But I guess when people want to analyze them, they want to forget that because, well, they are the Baltimore Ravens, and they do have Lamar Jackson, and they do have Derrick Henry and all that. But, they have a defense, a secondary that can give up big plays. They have an offense that at moments could be limited, as we saw against the Steelers, as we saw today against Philadelphia. So I think the Baltimore Ravens are the Baltimore Ravens, and as the great Blair Walsh once said, you are what your record says they are. And the record says they're 8-5, which is not a great team, but a good team. The Denver Broncos are 8-5 as well. We're not talking about them in terms of reaching the Super Bowl, but for some reason we are with Baltimore. I don't understand why. I think this Baltimore Ravens team is pretty overrated. And if you look at the class of the AFC, I think they are a step below the Kansas Cities, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Buffalo Bills, who I'm still a little iffy about, but I'll put them in there for now. I think this Baltimore Ravens team is a class below those teams, and it's probably around that Chargers range. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, Now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before a break, we discussed the Eagles defeating the Ravens. We move on to discuss the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor and these Cincinnati Bengals have dropped to 4-8, and it hasn't been that huge of a discussion. But I will bring it up on whether or not Zach Taylor, should he be keeping his job? This is a Cincinnati Bengals team that has vastly underperformed compared to what we thought of them entering this season. And look, historically, under the Zach Taylor reign, this Cincinnati Bengals team has struggled to start off their year. You look at the years that they reached that Super Bowl and reached that second AFC championship. They started off the year on a losing way and, with losing records through their first 4, 5, 6 games of the season. And it's been a consistent theme of what Cincinnati has been under Zach Taylor. Even in the years that they're good and bad, they've gotten off to bad starts. And this season, we're expecting them to be good. They get off to a bad start and we're thinking, okay, they can turn it on. And they just never got that consistency. We had a good moment. They had good moments, this season. Oh, you look at that, the game against, quite frankly, no, they haven't really had that good of moments, actually. They've lost to any decent team that they've played this season, honestly. So, you lose to Kansas City, you lose to the Commanders, you beat the Panthers, you lose to the Ravens, you beat the Giants, you beat the Browns, you lose to the Eagles, you lose to the Ravens, you lose to the Chargers, you lose to the Steelers. Yeah, every decent team they've played, they've lost to, and I think it's been the same theme in every single game that they've lost against good teams. You give up 44 to the Steelers. You give up 34 to the Chargers. You give up 35 to the Ravens. You give up 37 to the Eagles. You give up 41 to the Ravens again. You give up 38 to the Commanders. You don't win games when your defense is just that awful. There's a record of Bengals. I need to pull it up though. In terms of points scored. In losses this season, the Bengals are 2-4 when scoring 33 or more points this season. The rest of the NFL, when they've scored 33 or more points this season, is 52-1. Let me get that straight. The rest of the NFL has the rest of the NFL teams that scored 33 more points this season are 52-1. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2-4. Let me reword this to make it even more mind-boggling. There's only been 5 games this season where a team has scored more than 33 points this season and lost. 4 of those 5 games, the Cincinnati Bengals lost. If that gets to your head a little bit better, that's just crazy. That's just unbelievable. It's been brutal this season for the Bengals. They're defensively they're 31st in the NFL in points allowed, despite the fact that their offense is in the top 5 in terms of points scored. They've only they're 4-8. And their quarterback, Joe Burrow, he's remarkable this season. You look at the statistics. He's at the top or near the top in every major major statistical category. I believe he's number one in passer rating, number one in passing yards, and number one in touchdowns. He's only thrown for 5 interceptions. So you can't even say he's turning the ball over at a ridiculous rate. Now, there has been some inopportune turnovers in certain moments in the game, but those mistakes are only being exasperated by the fact that the Bengals defense has been so awful that any mistake that Joe Burrow is making is magnified at the highest level. Because for the Cincinnati Bengals to win win football games this season with the way that the defense has been, number one, Joe Burrow has to play an absolutely amazing game, like a ridiculously amazing game, and he cannot make any mistake, and that's just that's just impossible. This is impossible. You're asking, look, okay, it's not impossible, but it's just highly, highly unlikely. And yeah, Zach Taylor, he is an offensive head coach, and at the end of the day, we do judge him by how the offense looks. But when you're the head coach, you're the overseer for everything. And I'm really surprised with how bad the defensive unit has looked. Louis Anarumo, in my opinion, was a really impressive defensive coordinator, and I thought it was a guy that deserved more running for head coaching positions in the past few years, especially when that Bengals defense was playing that elite football that we've seen them play in those runs to the Super Bowl and AFC Championship. But man, oh man, this is way much different defense. This defense is a defense that gives up way too many big plays. They can't stop the bleeding. They give up way too many yards allowed. They're just not good. They're just not good, honestly. They couldn't stop a Colt. They couldn't stop a Colt. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. It's just pick your poison. It's pick your poison against the Cincinnati Bengals team defensively, and in opportune moments, they're not being able to make the play that stop needed. That's the most devastating part, is that in the moments where you just need them to make that one stop to get the Bengals back into the game or to get the Bengals the victory, they haven't been able to make it. There's no clutch factor with this defense. There's defensive, even with some of the terrible defenses Patrick Mahomes carried early on in his career, they all had that. What's the word? That Chiefs defense at least had that ability where they, when they needed to make that one stop to get Mahomes the ball back, or when they just needed to make that one stop to win the game, they had the ability to do that. This Bengals defense, they can't even make that one clutch stop. It's just horrendous. And individually, the players are not awful on that side of the ball. I have to say, we know what Sam Hubbard is. Sam Hubbard. I'm forgetting a player. What's his name? What's their start? Trey Hendrickson. Cam Taylor-Britt, I think he's a solid cornerback. Jermaine Pratt, these are not, bad plays. Mike Hilton. But no, they're, as a unit, they've just been awful. And we know Louis Anarumo, he likes to send pressure, and he's putting his cornerbacks in positions where they're having to defend one-on-one in certain times, and they're just getting absolutely melted. And going back to Zach Taylor, yes, he's not a defensive head coach, and he's, at the end of the day, offensive head coaches will be judged by the offense. But when you're a head coach, you're an overseer of the whole football team. And I think the Bengals have been a product of the quarterback and the talent, not a product of the coaching staff. When you look at the Cincinnati Bengals team and you see them play offense, you don't see a creative guru that's scheming guys open, this unstoppable run game. No, you see essentially really great backyard football with extremely great talented players like Joe Burrow, like Jamar Chase, like T. Higgins, like Tyler Boyd in the past. You're seeing really good backyard football. You don't see a great scheme and a great unit. You don't see that offensively. So in my opinion, what does Zach Taylor provide? He's not getting his guys motivated and riled up enough for these games. We see what they look like. They're 4-8. They're just losing football games. At the end, they're making plays and collapsing. They're not making those clutch stops. They're not making. It's just nothing is working. It's just nothing is working. And it's now multiple years now in the last couple of years where they haven't been able to get it together as a unit. They're consistently getting off to a bad start. They just need that fresh voice in there, to come in, to bring some new life, to shift the momentum back into the right direction. They just need a new voice. And with certain coaches, like you go to San Francisco and how they've been this season, it's Kyle Shanahan. Look, the 49ers, they're not going to fire Kyle Shanahan because at the end of the day, that offense, what he provides to that offense is extremely valuable. That scheme that he has provided to this 49ers team and, turned around that franchise. You can say the Bengals have turned around as a franchise with the addition of Zach Taylor, but is it because of that scheme? Is it because of his offense? No, it's because of the incredible talent of some of the players that they've been able to get, that they've been able to draft, that have fallen into their hands, like a Joe Burrow, like a Jamar Chase. Not because of Zach Taylor and the scheme. So I think getting in a new voice, potentially, if you can, bringing in a guy like Bill Belichick to coach Joe freaking Burrow and Jamar Chase, and he will completely change this defense into a way formidable outfit. I still think there is some talent there. I think that would make Cincinnati skyrocket to the top in terms of legitimate AFC contenders for next season. But we'll see. I still think with how incompetent this Bengals ownership is, I think it will have to take a major disappointing season for the Bengals to release Zach Taylor. It'll probably take a 4-13 or a 5-11 and even or 5-12, or even then I don't know, because they are a really cheap, incompetent ownership group. But it's a conversation that should be had more. I really think it should be discussed a little bit more. You don't get to live off that Super Bowl forever. And yeah, it's just the cold, hard reality. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the Rockets becoming the legit NBA contenders and Will Hardy with his situation, calling that timeout against the Lakers.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Zach Taylor and whether or not he should keep his job now that the Bengals are 4-8 and realistically out of the playoff race. We move on to discuss the Houston Rockets and whether they are a legit NBA contender and whether or not Will Hardy deserves criticism for the timeout against the Lakers. Let's start off with the Rockets being a legit NBA contender. So the Houston Rockets got, in my opinion, their most impressive win this season. They knocked off the number 1 seeded Oklahoma City Thunder behind Fred VanVleet and his incredible performance. He He dropped 38 points. Had that big three at the end as well in overtime. He was 5 of 9 from the 3-point line. He was efficient, 10 and 19 from the field. And he was really good in that game, and it was enough to lead Houston back past OKC in that game. It was a 119-116 victory, and now they're sitting, in the Western Conference Finals. In the Western Conference, on the second seed. They're only half a game behind the number 1 seeded Oklahoma City Thunder, and it's raised question marks on how legit this Houston Rockets team is, and they have been really impressive. I just think the really impressive thing, number one, is defensively. As a team ranked defensively, they're second in the league. They're playing some really good defense as a whole. Individually and as a unit, Dylan Brooks, even Albert Sengun, he's up there in terms of defensive win shares, up there near the top, which, his weakness in the past has been defensively. He's been really easy to pick on pick and rolls, going up against pick and rolls and all that. But so far this season, it seems like they've been able to get the best out of him. They've been able to protect him enough defensively where he's able to be a good defender, and Jabari Smith, he's also, a good defender, has some length on him. Dylan Brooks as well, Amen Thompson, even Jalen Green, they're all being bought in, and even if they have individual players that are, are easy to go, are easy to play against one-on-one defensively, like VanVleet and Sengun, they're not like VanVleet and Sengun. They're able to protect them with the team defense that they play. I think Ime Udoka is a really good head coach, and despite all that situation with the Celtics team and all that, what he's been able to do this season with this team, I think, has also been really impressive defensively. And offensively, they're extremely balanced. They don't have a star per se. They don't have a guy that can dominate the game on a consistent night-to-night basis. But what you do have is, because look, this Rockets team, they don't have a single player that's averaging 20 points per game, and to have a start that they've had and to not have a single player averaging at least 20 points is a really hard thing to do. So I think it speaks to the level of depth from this roster. But what you do have is a few players here and there that can, that can go off on any given night, like a Fred VanVleet, like an Albert Sengun, like a Jalen Green. Even, Dylan Brooks, he could give you a good 25 here and there. So yeah, they've been really impressive. Here's my thing though with the Houston Rockets team. They do not have that consistent star on a game-to-game basis that you can trust, and they don't have they do have a few guys that can give you something on any given night, but they don't have that guy that can give it to you on a consistent night in, night on basis. And I think, down the stretch, if you do suffer, and they've been one of the most healthiest teams in the league, down the stretch, if you miss a guy or two, that can really shake it up. Because if you don't have that guy that can give you that consistent basis night in, night out, it puts yourself to be in, as a team, makes you more vulnerable to injuries going forward, because you're really relying on the depth to generate the enough points as a unit to compete with the best of them in the league. But yeah, they've been really impressive. For me, I just think the only alarming part about what they've done this season is the fact that Jalen Green hasn't been able to take the next level. I think Jalen Green has been at the same level he's been his entire career. A player that on any given night can get you 35. He had 41 against the 76ers. He was 12 of 20. But he's also a guy that can, go for 9 points, 2 of 6, and not even shoot the ball the entire second half against OKC. He's just an inconsistent player. He's a shot checker as well, shoots 39% of the field, is not an efficient player, puts up a lot of shots, and sometimes can shoot you out of a game. He's not, and also the hugely the hugely concerning part about Jalen Green is that his 3-point efficiency is not going up. This is a guy, for his career, he's shooting 33.5% from the field. He's only shooting 31.7% this season. As a guard in today's NBA, that is horrible. That is horrible. That is not good enough, quite frankly. And he has the ability to attack the bucket. He has that athleticism. But he's just not consistent enough. He's not efficient enough. And it's the same story with Jalen Green. Since, honestly, his rookie season, I think this is a player that the Rockets now going down the stretch need to think about moving on from, because he just doesn't provide you that. With him being the 3rd overall pick, you're expecting him to be that star, and he's just not. He's just not at that level. I don't think he'll ever will be. He is 22 years old, but this is a guy, I believe, in his 4th season in the league. Guards usually tend to figure it out by this point. They usually show at least signs that they're maturing and getting better. We're not getting those signs. We're seeing the same inconsistencies that we were critical about Jalen Green in year 2 and year 3. It's still going on despite the Rockets' really, really good start. So I think there's a lot of positives with the Rockets start. I still don't think they're a lock per se to be a top 6 seed. I think we're still really early in the season. There are 21 games, and then we need more of a sample size. But the basketball that they've played, and the fact that they've been healthy as well, which has been a big factor of it, they've been really, really impressive. And if they can continue to stay healthy and they can continue to maintain the high level that they're defending at, I definitely think they could, be a team that makes the playoffs and not be in that play-in, area. But again, we are early on this season, and they are 15-6. But they're, but the reality is they're only 4 games away from being the 10th seed. With how tight the Western, they're only 4.5 games away from being the 11th seed. That's how tight this Western Conference is. I mean, the Timberwolves are sitting at the 11th seed right now, 10-10. It's a really tight conference, and I look forward to continuing to see the Houston Rockets going forward. They take on the Kings, the Warriors, the Clippers. Let's see if they can start building some more and more consistency, and if they can, if one of those players can develop into being that player that can show up game in, game out on a consistent basis. Right now, I'm thinking the most likely player is Sengun. He's averaging 18.8. I think he can be a consistent 21, 22-point scorer for them. He's more efficient than Jalen Green. He shoots 47% from the field. He's a career 52% field goal shooter. Maybe Sengun, but it remains to be seen. I think Sengun has definitely been the more promising of the two. So we'll see. Going to the Jazz-Lakers situation. So the Jazz had the ball down 1 late in the game with Colin Sexton, taking the ball up the court. Initially, Will Hardy decides to let him play. Let him play. We've seen in the past coaches in that situation, sometimes they let the players play, which I have no problem with. Sometimes, you can pick and choose your moments. So this came actually, let's just go back actually. So this came off of a made, let me go back actually. Sorry, we're dealing with technical difficulties there. Okay. So Will Hardy has been criticized criticized for this controversial decision to take a timeout after initially allowing Colin Sexton to take the ball up the court. coming off of a missed shot from the Lakers. LeBron missing a three to potentially put the dagger into Jazz. Lakers are up 1. Sexton gets the ball with about 8 seconds left. He takes the ball up the court. Keep in mind the Jazz have a timeout left. They're down 1. Will Hardy initially decides not to take a timeout. He takes the ball up. He dribbles from one side to the court to the other, and he's at that moment. He's looking to attack the basket. Rui Hachimura is playing tight coverage, tight defense. He takes a dribble to get around to Hachimura, and then does an initial, semi sort of hesitation dribble, a retreat dribble. And in that moment, Will Hardy decides to take a timeout with 2.6 seconds left. What happened was, right as the whistle is getting blown, Colin Sexton is able to get around Rui Hachimura and get the layup off, but the timeout was called. And because of that, some question marks have been asked, blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm here to defend Will Hardy. I understand coaches allowing the players to play, but a big pet peeve I have about coaches is when they allow the players to play to totally ignore what is going on in that moment and to live and die by the decision. If you feel like your player is in a position where he can't get an inadequate shot off in that moment, just take that time out. How many times in the past have we seen coaches initially allow players to take the ball up the court and to try to get a final shot up and see the player gets trapped at half court with no real means to be able to get the shot off, and instead of the coach in that moment taking that timeout, they just allow whatever is about to happen. That is always mind-boggling to me. I think Will Hardy in that moment is just being proactive, and he sees Colin Sexton take that initial hesitation, potential retreat dribble. He sees in that moment Hachimura is playing really good defense and is preventing Colin Sexton in that moment to get a decent shot off, and he's just taking that timeout. He couldn't foreshadow what was about to happen in Sexton being able to blow by Rui Hachimura, so he takes that timeout. I have some sympathy for Will Hardy in that situation because of what I've seen in the past from coaches where in that moment, they just allow whatever is happening to go happen, and usually 85% of the time or 95% of the time, it leads to some sort of horrible step back shot that has absolutely no chance. And I'm just thinking, coach, what are you doing in that moment? Should call the timeout. And Will Hardy didn't want to be reactive. He wanted to be proactive. And it ended up costing them in that moment because Sexton was able to get past Hachimura as the whistle was getting blown for the timeout. But it happens. It's life in the NBA. And, Will Hardy is a really, really good coach. And what he's been able to do with the Jazz has been pretty impressive with the Jazz teams at certain periods, not really looking to win. And yeah, it happens. That's the NBA. They end up losing the game at the end, and the Lakers move on and survive. But does Will Hardy deserve criticism? Well, no, he doesn't. I really don't. In fact, I respect him for making that timeout. I respect him for that decision. In fact, I'm not only here to defend him. I'm here to say that it was the right decision, because I like coaches in that moment being proactive rather than reactive and allowing whatever to happen to let it play out. I believe there's a fine line between trusting your players and putting your players in the best position to get the best shot off at the end. There's a fine line there. I think Will Hardy was walking thin on that fine line and ended up being on the wrong side of it in that moment. But I've seen plenty of times in the past where the coaches are completely on the side of trusting your players rather than, getting the best, taking that time out and getting the best possibility at a final shot off, drawing a play. And yeah, that it is what it is. It's the National Basketball Association. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Manchester City. before the break, we discussed the Rockets and whether or not they're a legit NBA contender and whether or not Will Hardy deserves criticism for the time out against the Lakers. We move on to real quickly recap Manchester City. Have they fallen out of the title race? So they suffered 2-0 loss to Liverpool, and they're now 11. Number one, they've dropped to 5th in the Premier League now with their, I believe this was their, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With their 6th loss in the last 7 games, they're winless in their last 7 with 6 draws and a loss, and they've dropped. This is in all competitions in the Premier League. They've dropped down to 5th place with 23 points. They have 44 losses this season. Manchester City does, and they lost to Liverpool, and they're now 11 points away from Liverpool. Liverpool now 9 points clear at the top, and look. Yeah, have they fallen out of the title race? Well, at this moment, yeah. I still think there's still an opportunity for them to get back into it. I've seen City do some remarkable things in the past, and you know, and I don't think this is beyond them, but they have some serious issues within the team. They're too open to play against defensively. They give up too many. They leak too many goals, and they're lacking that little bit of creativity in recent games as well, and that's a really alarming thing. Actually, the most alarming thing is how leaky they are defensively. I mean, to be 3-0 up against Finerwood and concede 3 goals in the last 15 minutes is a team that is on a horribly low confidence level, and Guardiola has a lot of work up for him to get this City team, because, you know, if they don't get it together, forget the title race. This is a team that have a real battle to stay within the top 4. And that's I never thought I would say that. I really never thought I'd say that. So, City falling out of the title race, I mean, at this moment, you have to say absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of